Do you ever feel like you're being held back by the weight of your past experiences, generational trauma, or toxic relationships? Are you struggling to overcome anxiety, PTSD, or chronic health issues? Well, if so, this episode is for you. Today, this episode is actually a previous recording of Intentional Monday where we featured a very special guest. And she shares some very powerful insights and practical tools and also inspiring stories to help you rise above life's challenges and start living the life you've always envisioned. So, strap yourself in, grab a notepad, and listen in. And also make sure that you are sharing this episode with somebody that you love. This was incredibly helpful for both myself and Karen, who you will hear also on this recording. And I would love to know how this episode makes you feel. If you'd like me to continue to share some of our past Intentional Mondays as well, I would be very happy to do that. So, can't wait to hear how it all falls for you. Welcome to Get Intentional with Mary. This podcast is for the busy woman who appreciates working hard and also playing hard. This show will focus on lifestyle, entrepreneurship, wellness, amazing interviews, and what every woman needs to live a successful and fulfilled life. Be sure to subscribe, share with friends, and leave a review. Now let's get on with today's topic. Hello and welcome to Intentional Monday. We are very excited today because we have a very special guest. Today we are going to be talking about unlocking your limitless potential and rising above life's challenges. My name is Mary Massey. I'm a personal growth strategist and social media coach. And I'm here with my partner in crime, Karen Liano. Karen, go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, good morning. I'm Karen Liano. I'm a social media consultant and creative director, and I help tell your story on social media and help you be the influencer of your brand.
Awesome. And we are here with Helen Levine. Now, Helen, before you say who you are in your own words, I'm going to read your bio if that's okay. And It goes, meet Helen Levine, a visionary life coach and a sought-after intuitive healer with global clientele. After decades of searching for answers and trying various modalities, she realized that the answers were within all along. This realization led her to embark on a soul-searching journey of self-healing and manifestation, and she has since become a beacon of hope for those seeking to transform their lives. Through her signature time travel healing technique, the Fear Method system, Helen has been helping clients worldwide to heal from past traumas, reclaim their power, and unlock their full potential. Known for her ability to help chronic singles attract the right partner and create fulfilling relationships, she has become a go-to resource for those seeking lasting love. Helen's unique blend of intuition, wisdom, and practical knowledge has earned her the reputation of being a miracle worker. Helen's mission is to transform the world by helping one person at a time heal themselves, heal, and create a ripple effect. Wow, I love that so much. So, Helen, welcome to Intentional Monday. We're very happy to have you here. What led you to this journey?
Oh boy, that's a very loaded question. It's been So just to be sure, your sound was cutting out a little bit. Was that for me or is that Karen? Was that like
Yeah, it was cutting out just a little bit.
Okay. I just wasn't sure.
Okay, it could be me because my Wi-Fi is a little unstable. So in case it cuts out, Karen, you just take the lead.
Yep, sounds good.
All right. So what led me to this? It started out in my teens, probably is when I really was very disconnected. I live in a state of chronic anxiety. So I suffered with a lot of anxiety attacks and a lot of health issues, which, as I realized later, it was very much all connected. So initially I was just kind of always in a mode of seeking. I was seeking to heal myself. I had chronic GI issues like gastritis, a lot of inflammation since I was very young. And so I've been to all kinds of doctors. And eventually, when I got a little older, I began seeking like healers and all this kind of thing. So it was like a nonstop, almost looking for like help. It was a chronic state of like seeking and feeling somehow broken, essentially. And gradually, through the different healers and through that whole journey, I was beginning to kind of connect the dots. And I realized years later that even each of those healers, they weren't just helping me heal, they were actually teaching me I was learning from them, like all the different ways of being. And there was always something in me that was like speaking, but I couldn't yet connect it. I couldn't, understand it. I realized later I was blocking it because I've been a healer many lifetimes, and I've been told by several powerful healers over the years. So because of some past life, I guess, fears and traumas, I don't really go too much into that. That's not really my thing. But I've been told that that's why I was kind of holding myself back. So to make a long story short, I ended up kind of connecting the dots on all of it and realizing that it was always in me and that I had to take it on and heal myself. And what I was consistently doing is giving away my power by constantly sort of believing and trusting that it's somebody else that will provide the healing that I needed. And so I actually became a firm believer. What I teach my women is you are your own healer. Don't give me your power. I'm not your guru. I am here to support you and guide you through your journey. But the ultimate transformation and healing is something within each and every one of ourselves, whether it's financial or personal life or physical health, mental, it's always within ourselves. And it becomes such an important part of just remembering who you are and recognizing that truth. And so the final straw for me was my son developed epilepsy, actually, and when he was about 5. And so that was like my last straw that pushed me completely into this journey, like this whole journey of truly going deeper. And that's when I really connected to the energy work and to the deeper emotional component. And that's when I really had all the breakthroughs and ahas that when I needed to heal my own stuff, it wasn't just healing anxiety. It wasn't just healing the physical body. It was actually so deeply rooted all together and connected. And so when I began to heal it at the root of going deeper into my childhood and clearing a lot of the emotional stuff that was there, and a lot of it came up layers upon layers. So I call it peeling like your emotional onion. That's when I started to experience tremendous breakthroughs in my own health, in my own everything, in my own life, like on every level, including my professional life. So, and then my son is doing great. Thank God he's healthy, and I'm obviously doing great. Thank God. So that's the journey that led me to this whole path.
That's amazing that it started from something physical in your body and all of a sudden transformed into something more internal and emotional. I know you went through seeing people and going through things with your son, but I just feel like that's such a big transition coming from the physical to going to the emotional. What brought on more of that awareness that it wasn't just something physical, would you say?
I've always had that sort of innate sense that there had to be something more. Like I remember even being in my very early 20s, like late teens, early 20s, and always kind of, and I wasn't brought up because I'm an immigrant in the United States, right? I came here as a teenager, so I didn't speak any English. We were poor, and there was a lot of trauma around that too. One of the generational traumas that I had to sort of break from my lineage. But I always had this sense that there just has to be more. There's no way that my body is meant to feel this way. There's no way, like doctors kept saying, it's all in your head. I was always kind of like gaslighted by the medical community that, oh, you're young and you're healthy, you're just making stuff up. And it just, inside me, there was like, no way, like there's something there. They just can't figure it out, but I can't explain it. I just know it. So I was called a hypochondriac and all sorts of things. And a lot of my clients have gone through similar experience too, where, medically it's seemingly there's nothing wrong, tests are okay, but they don't feel well. And so I was nonstop student. So I've read everything I could read as far as esoteric literature, any kind of manifestation books, law of attraction. I've studied it for so many years, decades, that, little by little, it was connecting the dots. One of my biggest catalysts and probably my biggest, I guess, if I were to use the word idols or gurus, whatever, would be Louise Hay. And her book, You Can Heal Your Life, was, I used to call it my Bible. I went to deliver my daughter more than 20 years ago with that book, believe it or not, with me to read the affirmations, because that's when all of it began to really come out like a wound that just came wide open, is when I had my daughter. And that's when I had the beginning steps of realizing that a lot of my physical health was directly related to the emotional and to the spiritual. So like it was all connected. I realized that in a sense, we have our soul. And this may be a little too sort of esoteric or out there for some people, but I've had this happen with several clients too, where I realized that there's a disconnection that happens almost from our body and our soul being. And so trauma of any kind, like look at it almost like as if it like knocks it out essentially. And so the visual that I got one time during a client session is that it's like almost like these strings, energetic strings, and some of them are like disconnected. And so when you reconnect it, you begin to feel more whole again. It's like you no longer feel that brokenness and that fragmentation, because we were never broken. It's just that we feel that way because of all of those traumas, whether they're big, small traumas, it doesn't matter. It's our interpretation of any experience that leaves us feeling somehow not whole or not enough, you know? And so that was really the beginning through kind of understanding it all. And eventually it was just nonstop learning all the different tools, techniques. You know, sometimes people ask me, so which technique do you use? Are you a Reiki healer or something like that? I've never studied Reiki. And the truth is, I don't really have like a formally learned technique. It's just an evolution, I guess, of just decades of studying everything. Because I started with Ayurveda, Chinese medicine. I became a certified health coach years ago. I studied under a renowned naturopath. So it was more on the physical and understanding, like, you know, herbals and homeopathy and all these things. But and every teacher always said, this is the best modality. This is like the one way that will help. And even that never resonated. I've always been like, it cannot be. Why do I need to limit myself to something when I can use all of it? And so I just continued to learn. And the more I was doing that, the more it was awakening within me, the knowledge and the knowing. And it continues to. It's a process. With every client call, with every session, with every person I've ever helped, there's a new development of something that I realized, that of something like the way that we heal, who we are. It's just always a new layer of what is possible for us. It's just an incredible journey.
I feel like that physical aspect is something that a lot of the times we don't talk about because we get used to feeling a certain way. We wake up in the morning feeling tired, or for me, it's been with a headache during the times that I get a little bit stressed out, or that pain in the stomach, you know, like you talked about the gastritis, the pain in the joints, and that fatigue, or the tension in the neck and the back. And these are all signs of stress manifesting in the body. And a lot of women just wake up like that and they continue day in and day out without realizing that all of this is coming from their emotional state. And it gets to the point where it manifests in the body. So let me ask you this question. When it comes to that, and when you see all these women really just going through that stress and feeling all that pain, you recognize it right away because you were able to recognize it for you. So tell us about some of those self-awareness tips that these ladies can have where they might feel like, okay, this is normal for me because this is how it usually is. But let's go a little bit deeper and kind of help them understand that this is definitely not normal.
Sure. And that's the truth, is it's definitely not normal. We like you said, Mary, we become so accustomed to not feeling well that we almost tell ourselves that it's okay and it's the norm. Just like similarly styled limiting beliefs, even in the medical community of, you know, it's a normal aging process. I love to really break through all of those status quos because none of it is true. It's always somebody else's story and a projection and a belief that we take on. And then when we take that belief on as our truth, then we end up manifesting from that truth. And so what happens is when we believe that this is the norm and this is how my body is supposed to be, like that I don't feel well and that's my norm, then guess what happens? Your body obviously responds to that core belief because you're then talking about energy, you're then sort of living on that frequency of that way of feeling, right? And so in order to change that, you really need to, first of all, become aware of that belief, right? So we do run these inner programs and don't realize a lot of times. So when I work with my clients, I teach them to recognize, number one step is always awareness, I find, is recognize what type of an internal program are you running? And is it your own program? Is this your parents or grandparents' program? Is this your societal groups, maybe that you're surrounded with? Oh, this is who we are. This is what we eat. This is how we feel. This is how we look. This is our family weight, right? Like all these programs that women become so attached to that they don't even realize that this is not who I am. This is what I've been told, right? And so you separate yourself from that, and then you begin to really heal. And then another really important thing is to recognize where's your focus, because we tend to definitely get stuck on focusing on what's wrong. And so for me, for instance, for many years, I remember waking up and going to sleep and throughout the day, living in a state of, like I said, I used to have a lot of anxiety. And so it was the state of anxiousness. And my thoughts, as I began to do that work, I remembered this pretty recently, because it was hard to almost connect to that version of me, because I don't resonate with it as much now, right? It's been a long time. But I remembered that I used to literally, like throughout the day, first thing when I would wake up, it would be some fear-based thought, some very anxious thought. And when I would be falling asleep, it would be worry and kind of ruminating on always negative things and pictures. It was always some negative pictures and movies I would create in my mind. And so I always also tell my clients, like, what movie are you playing? And then realize, is this your movie, or did you get sucked into somebody else's movie unconsciously? And now that movie is causing you to be negative or fearful or not feeling well. And so, once we become more conscious of it, then you can become a conscious writer of your own screenplay. You can rewrite the whole story, and you can change the entire dynamic of how you feel and what you're projecting to your reality, because what we think and feel internally is what the outside reality is always going to confirm. Might not happen immediately, but it does happen. For some people, it's quite quick. For others, it could take a while. But if we shift our focus from not feeling well to what feels good, what feels good right now, what doesn't hurt, like, and don't think of doesn't hurt. I'm just giving an example because that's a negative, but what does feel good? And then just start to notice that. And interestingly, I began to notice in my body that when I was doing that, the pain would kind of dissipate because my focus shifted from the pain. And so I realized at some point that we create a lot of the manifestation in our body through our own mind and then the focus of it. So it's quite interesting.
What you said before is very important. Are you living somebody else's movie, or are you living your own movie? And so many people get stuck on this, where we are constantly being surrounded by either negativity or drama, and we become a product of that environment as opposed to controlling our internal environment. And that starts with the way that we think. So I love the way that you put that, because I think it gives people a little bit more of an understanding of, okay, let me just take a step back here. Whose movie am I in right now? Am I in Mary's movie, or am I in Karen's movie, right? So depending on the situation, I think it's good to at least ask yourself that question. So for those of you who are watching, what are you thinking so far? What are some of the questions that you have for Helen? Go ahead and pop them in the comments. I can see them here. And maybe this is helping you to think a little bit more about the way that you are feeling when you get up in the morning, or and how it is that you are going through your day. So Helen, I have this question for you. I'm going to pop it up here. Let me see if I can find it. And we always like to give people a lot of great tips when we do these Intentional Mondays, and we want them to definitely get more than just watching us talk. So this right here, what strategies or tools have you found most effective in breaking free from limiting beliefs and patterns?
All right, what strategies? So, well, I guess like I just shared, bringing your awareness is really the number one thing. Then shifting your focus is definitely a huge step. And then what I always tell everybody is start with a simple thing, like focus on 5 things you're grateful for in the moment. And that immediately shifts your entire frequency and your focus from whatever is going wrong or is not perfect, because we tend to focus a lot on things that are not perfect, they're not working out, and this is where our attention goes. And as a lot of us know, energy really flows to where that attention and that focus goes. So if you want to change your energy, that is the number one thing, is to kind of focus on that. And so what is it if you can't, an interesting way I realized to working with some people is even finding things that you're grateful for is challenging, believe it or not, for some. Even like the basic things. So I would start with like, well, you're on your phone, you have a roof over your head. Like, not everybody has that. So isn't that something to be grateful for? And we just take things for granted and don't realize that we forget. So what is it that you appreciate? Like if you can't find gratitude yet, because that's a whole big frequency shift for a lot of people, then what can you appreciate in any given moment? What is going right? And so try to kind of change that. Sometimes noticing your core belief might be easier than we think. And interestingly, I had a client years ago that I share my favorite mantra a lot of times. And for anyone here, hopefully that helps. I'll share it as well. Is the universe is rigged in my favor. When I heard that years ago, I was like, oh my God, it spoke to me. I wrote it down. I was like, this is just brilliant. It's like an immediate energy shift for me. Even if I feel like somehow I was dragged into something unconsciously, I'm like, what am I doing here? The universe is rigged in my favor. Like the universe has my back. And so that's a really good one that I hope anyone that needs like an immediate shift, feel free to use. And I had a client that responded with, yeah, right, the universe, how did she say, like, is out to get me or something like that. And I was like, oh my God. So there it is, the underlying root core belief that is like damaging in your life. It causes so much negativity. And so when we connected those dots for her, she had this small in the beginning breakthroughs, but it changes who you are eventually, little by little. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. There is no such thing as truly healed. That's the one thing I realized. It's an ever evolving journey. And so just be patient with yourself. Always just really sit with whatever comes up and allow yourself an opportunity to feel through it. So that's another huge thing, is we tend to kind of push away any uncomfortable emotions and feelings as they arise. We just like shrug them off. It's not comfortable. We don't want to feel them. So I really want to invite anyone that goes through anything that's not kind of going your way to just allow yourself to sit with it and process it instead of trying to push it away. Because the truth is, the more you either shrug it off or you end up pushing it, it goes deeper inward. It just creates more imbalance, and it creates more imbalance in the physical body too, because that's what our diseases are. It's a dis-ease in the body of what's happening in your mind and emotional state.
Yeah, it definitely causes you to get to feel heavy. And you're right. I feel like it's all about perspective. I saw on your Instagram, you had in your stories, which I loved. It was somebody talking about their day, and it started off negative and it ended up being positive. But then in the same story, you were like, read it backwards, where it started off positive and ended up negative. It's so true. It just depends on how you look at the world. And sometimes it's not easy for people because some people just think negatively naturally. And I was like that. Maybe I'm still like that, but people always said, Mary was always big about this years ago, always like, be grateful for everything. So I would like write things that I was grateful for. But sometimes in the beginning, it felt almost fake in a sense. Like it was almost like I was forcing myself to write something that, was I really grateful for it? Like I knew that I should be, but I wasn't. I don't know if I truly felt it at the time, but I think through time and just doing it every day, you kind of move your way to that thinking. So you're right, Helen, in that you just need to start with like the small steps and things like that.
And I agree with you, Karen. It's not easy, and you do feel sometimes as a fake, because you're like, well, I feel negative, like I feel down, but it's not that that's who you are. It's how you feel because of a learned response to life. So at the core, I don't think any of us are innately positive or negative. It's just due to those layers of acquired beliefs and feelings and thought patterns that, throughout our childhood and our life that leads us to that. And so as we change and evolve and become more conscious, sort of, co-creators of our reality, that's when we really begin to understand that, oh, I can change. I can change what I want, but in order to do that, I have to change who I am.
Mhm.
So that's really where the biggest changes occur.
Yeah, and it's so
Mhm.
beautiful that we have that power and that control to make that change, right? I feel like I'm personally in the middle of that. I'm yeah, slowly coming out of my chrysalis, I think. But so just to give you a quick background on me, so I'm Filipino. And so everything that you say is very relatable because with Filipinos, they are very, a lot of them came here to the US as immigrants and they just wanted to assimilate, right? So my parents are the ones that came here. I was born here, but my parents came here. They didn't teach me the language at all because they didn't want me to have to worry about having an accent, or they didn't want me to not fit in and things like that. So they take on, they work very hard. They're very submissive, people pleasing, and because of that, I feel like a lot of that was transferred to me. So my whole life, I've definitely been like very much a people pleaser, low boundaries, and so that from my generation, from my like generation and my culture that came, and of course some of my parents' stuff. My mom is always very aware of people around, so she's always like, "Oh, don't be in people's way." Don't bother people. So I was always taught to just kind of like move out of the way, feel small, and all of those play a factor into like who I am and who we are. And it's only through years that I became more aware about it, and now I'm learning that like that's not just who I am. That's not the end all be all. I definitely have the power to change that because that's not who I truly feel inside. And so I love that the work that you do sounds amazing for people like me.
Thank you. It's interesting what you shared. So I'll share real briefly. I had a very unique and amazing experience that I was privileged to have with working with a mother and daughter, both Filipino, and learning from their experiences, what you just shared. It was definitely some common sort of core cultural things. And it was a fascinating journey because I got to work with the mother and the daughter and the unconscious blockages that were coming through, and eventually some other family members. I was mind blown. So I'm writing my book that hopefully will be released later this year. And those examples I put in there because it was, when else do you, it was almost like a science experiment for me, of seeing, what different people, but in the same lineage, carried in their unconscious layers. And it was like mind blowing to see and compare my notes on what I worked on with the mother versus the daughter, and then eventually there are other family members. It was just insane that, because I never know what's going to come up, right? I just follow the intuitive guidance to what I call time travel healing. And it was literally like, oh my God, like look at the exact similar unconscious traumas that were coming through. And so these were my big sort of aha moments around, we are not just our own experiences. We come from our lineages and we carry generational traumas. So that was like my big experience with that through working with them.
That's so
The family.
beautiful. Yeah, to have the two different generations there. I wish I wish my mom would do that with me.
Well,
You know what? I think everybody needs that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mary, I didn't hear you.
No, I said I think everyone needs that. It's just it's hard because I know that sometimes it's very difficult to have these conversations with your family members because they didn't grow up that way. So we are, I think, at such a pivotal moment in our lives because we are bringing up our kids, and we can teach our kids to be more emotionally aware and emotionally intelligent, and to be able to really respect themselves, respect their boundaries, so that we don't pass on all of the things that were passed on to us, because at some point we have to say, okay, the buck stops here. This is how it was before. This is what my parents did, and they did the best that they could do with what they had, with the knowledge that they had. But now we know a little bit more, and once we know better, we can do better, especially for our kids. So it's a great opportunity for us to continue to learn and continue to listen to all of these amazing coaches and people who have been through it, who have helped other people heal, so that we can heal ourselves and we can pass that on to our kids, or prevent them, I should say, from having gone through all the things that we went through, because it's definitely not easy. My parents are gone, and I lost my parents. I lost my mom very young, so it's not like I could even understand her personality much, or what she left, or what she instilled in me. But with my dad, it was different. I had a very close relationship with him. I had him for a long time. And a lot of who he is also a huge part of me, because I see myself in a lot of the things that I do, my entrepreneurial drive, and the way that, I do certain things. But at the same time, there are still things there that need to be taken care of. And that awareness comes as we learn and as we grow. So I really appreciate you taking the time to really, dive a little bit deeper in that. And Karen, for sharing your story, because it's important. People need to know that even though we're here, we're still working through our stuff. We're still working through our stuff. And yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sure. I think we're all, on this path. So, and it is something that I've learned to embrace. Instead of, feeling like you're a victim to it, you're an empowered co-creator of your path once you kind of get into this mode. And the truth is, what you've shared, Karen, and you said, you wish you could do it with your mom. When you heal yourself, you truly do heal your lineage. And I've seen it in my life firsthand, and it shifted my entire relationship with my mom, and then with my own kids, because I took it on. So I'm really on a mission to create this whole cycle breaker movement. I feel like, especially as moms, it is huge to realize that we are the ones, like you said, who get to put this, like this ends with me. And so our children don't have to keep on reliving what our truth once was. Once we change that, we energetically also heal our lineage. And so your relationship, and it doesn't matter if your parents are physically still with us or not, energetically, I mean, I've seen like incredible things. I had a client once where we healed a slavery trauma, where I had like literally a visual. It was insane, even for me. Like, well, sometimes I never know what kind of channel things come through in my sessions, but I saw her ancestors before me. And interestingly, this woman, who's such a powerful, strong female, she described later that she's always had this sense of like feeling enslaved, but never could explain it. And whether it was enslaved to her career, to her life, like there's always this sense of you're not being true to who you are somehow. And when we cleared that, it was like this huge weight. And she was like, it was incredible. I've never, consciously, how do you know that she wasn't the one that experienced it? And it wasn't even her parents. It was like generations ago. And it was there in her cellular memory, carrying what her lineage felt. The same way that I discovered during a medical procedure, I'll show just for real brief, that I carried Holocaust trauma in my cells from my grandparents' lineage. And it was like a huge, scary moment to experience, but it was another one that led me to my own awakening of where I come from and how it's affected me. So I've had a lot of interesting experiences like that.
No, that makes me think of it's a fiction book that I read, but it talks about something nonfiction in it, and it was talking about the cellular memory, and it brought up it was mice or rats or something, and back in the day they were in this type of cage, and they would have cherry blossom water on the bottom of the cage, and they would go down to, because they love the smell of it, so they would go down. And they would, I don't know why, I don't remember the exact story, but basically they would get electrocuted when they would touch the water. And so now generations after the fact, even though they weren't getting electrocuted or anything, they despise the smell of cherry blossoms. So it's crazy how, we remember this stuff that has nothing to do with us, but from like generations ago.
Yeah.
And so consciously, obviously we don't know, right? But I go straight into the unconscious layers. That's why a lot of my clients, make statements like, oh my God, but how did you, like, I've been to therapy for years and I've never even touched on it, because how can you touch on something that you have no awareness of, right? Like, so it just doesn't come up. And yet it's there, and it's creating these cycles and attracting on a certain frequency that it's not where you want to be. And so you need to just literally connect to that. And it doesn't always have to be conscious. A lot of times, through meditation, people can achieve similar kinds of experiences. I always tell people, like, we all have that innate ability, right? It's not like you need me, for instance, to go in and clear that trauma or generational trauma. It's just that if you really don't want to kind of have to deal with it for years and figure it out and stuff, there are people that are available to kind of help and guide you through it. And there are different, types of experiences and healers and coaches and therapists that have different modalities and techniques and tools. And it's just, I always say, but make sure that you realize that you're the one that's ultimately doing that and shifting. It's never somebody else, that healer or therapist. So don't become somebody's chronic patient, because that's literally like what the whole model just, is something that doesn't resonate with me. It's having anyone, like I always tell my clients, if I have to keep on working with you year after year on clearing like a lot of stuff every week or whatever, that means I haven't served my purpose, So I think ultimately we really have to connect to our own stuff and allow ourselves. That's the key. So we have to allow ourselves to really process and change. And it's not easy.
Yeah. And going back to what you said about the cellular memory, there's actually studies that have been done on neuroscience level where a lot of these traumas are actually imprinted in the DNA. And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually, it's no longer that thought of, okay, it's just in your head, or, it's a little out there. It's actually science.
Yeah.
Yes, it's science that it's imprinted in our DNA. So that's why a lot of the times we do have to go back to our childhood. We do have to go back to some of the traumas that we experienced ourselves and see, okay, what is it that is keeping us from moving forward? It's kind of like you're shackled to your past. And if you don't understand that part of you, you're never going to move forward. You're never going to be able to achieve the things that you dream of achieving. So with that being said, Helen, let's talk about having that emotional support and having a proper network that can help us to, get through some of these traumas, and that will allow us to also continue with our transformation and evolution in a safe way. How important is having a good network?
I think it's huge. It is so important. And a lot of us really lack that. I know for me, I was always kind of like the black sheep, the weirdo who spoke about things that, people around, my friends and family, didn't really resonate with. And so I kind of, luckily, I guess, in a sense, I was okay with that. I was always sort of following my own path. Now, having, moved forward, like years later, a lot of the same people are like, it's just amazing how you just didn't care. You just went on with whatever. And not everyone sort of can do that. It feels lonely at times. And so it's important, and it's really an incredible time that we live in now. The ability to connect with others who are like-minded, who are on a similar path, is available now through social media, through networking. So a lot of times we seek it from obviously people that are close to us, family members and close friends. But I'm just going to really encourage you to kind of step away from that and realize that it's okay if they're not there for you in the way that you need them to at this time, and that it's okay to also find that in other spaces. So for instance, for me, I was kind of like thinking for years, how can I create that space for that would be, to create like a community of people that are like-minded, that understand each other and can support each other. And so finally last year I created this mastermind for my women where they can express themselves in that way. They can speak about what comes up in the sense where maybe their family members cannot or don't want to speak about, and same with their friends. And also it's unbiased, because your friends and family, no matter what, and no matter how well-wishing they are, they still carry certain biases about you, about your experiences. And so it might not necessarily be that helpful. If, in a sense, it may sometimes pull you back. So it is really important to have, someone, whether it's a community or that's why people, I think, look for therapists. And that's the benefit of having somebody that is sort of not connected to you, not vested in you emotionally, that can provide just space to open up, to really just
Yeah.
Not even so much provide you with the answers, which a lot of people want that, but that's disempowering. But really to create more of that space for you to come up with your own truth, with your own answers.
Having
love
open
it.
and honest conversations. Karen, hold on. I have a question here from someone that I think is an important question to answer. How do you instill this in your kids? I'm just going to pop it here. So let's talk about that for a few.
Interesting. So the only way, truthfully, to instill anything in our kids is by example. They will always, they don't care what you're going to tell them. And for me, my kids have been some of my best teachers. And it wasn't always easy. And I had to learn a lot of painful lessons as I was going through my own healing journey, as I was healing my own inner child. It was obviously, at the time, I was not the best mother I could be because I was coming from a space of being a wounded child, now parenting children. And so I think a lot of our societal things, this is what happens in relationships, whether they're relationships between parents and children or spouses or any kind of relationship at work. I remind people that you are not just dealing with an adult. You're dealing with very often a wounded child in an adult body. And so if you just become aware of that, then you can start to kind of experience them in a different way. Like I don't look at people for how they act. I almost see them more like on a soul level. Well, what's this person's experience? What is it that they are carrying? Because I'm an empath too, so I feel their energy and their emotional state more. So I've always taught my kids since they were little, don't judge somebody just based on their outbursts or their, whatever it is that they're experiencing, because you don't know what they've gone through. And so they're just simply expressing themselves based on their life experience or their experience that day when they're in a state of sort of unawareness. But as a parent, the first step is to start to heal yourself. That's the only way. And it's interesting. I've had several moms over the years that would come and say, okay, help me work on my kid, because like my teenager is so hard, for example, they're driving us crazy. Help me with the kid. I'm like, all right, let's work with you. And the mom would be like, what do you mean? It's my kid that's the problem. I'm like, let's just, work with you and see and see what comes up. And as I would work with the mom, the kid would transform. And so the mom then would have this big aha moment. And so I realized that's the truth is when we really start to take on personal responsibility and heal ourselves, our children automatically change. Our parents, like you could see the dynamics shift. I mean, I've seen marriages shift because it's, I've had a wife that was on the verge of a divorce, like literally came to me, there's nothing I could do. My husband is who he is. He's the way he is. It's not working. And through me working with her, everything changed. And then she wrote me this beautiful testimony. She was, I just cannot believe it. I haven't mentioned to him anything that I've done. He's just a different person. How? And I'm like, because you are the one that's changing. Your energy is changing. And he's just simply responding. So our people, especially people closest to us, are always our mirrors. And so your children, it doesn't get any more sort of powerful as a mirror than your children. And they always reflect who you are inside, what sort of emotional state and energetic state you're in. And it doesn't matter how you will act, what act you will put on. The kids always feel it energetically and intuitively. And when they're young too, a lot of times people would say, well, I grew up in a household, my parents never fought. No, it was a great family dynamic. And the truth is those parents lived in a state of chronic resentment of each other. And they just put on this kind of like a show, obviously thinking that that's the best thing that they could do for their kid. And in a way, it's better than, loud, like arguing or fighting. But that kid still felt that misalignment and that whole disconnect between the parents, even though they could never explain it or understand it consciously, because in the appearance, everything was great, right? And so it's just, the key is to work on yourself. That's how you take your kids.
Karen, what were you going to say before, Mama?
Well, one, that's great on this same topic. That's great advice, and I agree with you. I think the greatest gift that we could give to our kids is the gift of compassion. And like you said, so through the years, I've been trying to, it's hard, right? Sometimes people kind of trigger you, or, you feel different things when you meet different people. But if you just look at them as, um, as people with unhealed, things from childhood, it helps you look at them in a softer light. And so when I look at people, sometimes I try to look at them like a child, not like immature, but just as a child still learning about life, I guess, So again, that just brings on that compassion. So I love that you share that with the kids. But no, what I wanted to talk about before was when we were talking about who we surround ourselves with. You brought up that it doesn't necessarily have to be family and friends that we have to surround ourselves with. And I love that, because personally, I felt like, because you're my family, I felt like I wanted to keep you in my inner circle. I wanted you to understand what I was going through and feel it all and just give me the support that I needed. But not everybody understands your journey or what you're going through. And that was a lot of pressure to put on people. So I love that you say it doesn't have to be those people. You can find the people that are really meant for you, or the people that can understand where you are more in life, but don't put that pressure of having, just because you're related to them or their blood, they don't have to be kind of your,
Yeah. And in a sense too, I think for a lot of us, there's that part of ourselves that almost wants to get that approval, that validation from people that are close to us. And that comes from also this sense of kind of wounded self. So when you heal that, you realize that you don't really need that, and it's no longer coming from a place of like any kind of arrogance or judgment or blame, but instead it comes from a place of, I'm okay, just as I am, and I also receive you and accept you just for the way that you are, and I don't need your approval and I don't need your validation, So for me, that was a big part of my own healing, is to realize that, partially when seeking for that type of support from family or friends, for instance, it comes from sort of I don't want to say the word wrong, but like in a sense that wrong place of needing that validation, where the more you heal, the less you need that. Like the more you sort of step into your own power, and then you just live your own truth, and it becomes okay. Interestingly, though, like I said, the people around you do end up responding to you in a very different manner when you change your whole frequency, because now you're a different version of you. So you're also experiencing your relationships from a different state of being, and so obviously as a mirror, those people will always respond to you in a different way. And sometimes it can also separate people, right? Like sometimes certain relationships will no longer work. And I've also realized that that's okay. Some people will break away and leave your life, because you're not a vibrational match anymore. You have evolved, and they may have stayed back, so sometimes that can happen too. And then you have to also get comfortable with being uncomfortable with that too.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, Helen, because a lot of the times we get so stuck on that person's no longer in my life. But when you begin to think about it, you're in your movie and they're in their own movie, and you have to respect their movie also, just like they have to respect yours. And what you said before was so interesting too for me, because I work with a lot of women also, and that whole like being able to be understood by everybody, because at the end of the day, you have to just understand yourself, and you have to be okay with yourself. You have to look to you, because it is 100% you, the one who has to deal with all the things that you have to deal with, and no one else. So, and that also goes, to our kids and everything. How's my connection? Am I still a little bit unstable? I feel like it keeps. Okay.
You're good.
All right. So we've covered so much today, and I feel like we could do so much more, Helen. But I really want everybody to know what you have coming up this year. If there's any programs that you have, you mentioned your mastermind, which I think is a beautiful space also, because we need to be able to have real conversations, not just as entrepreneurs, but also as women and as moms, without that judgment. Sometimes when we go to our friends, or our family, depending on who you talk to, the first thing they want to do is give you advice because they don't want you to suffer, right? They want to fix the situation. But it's not about that. It's about talking, because when we talk about what we're going through, that's when the answers are revealed. When we actually express ourselves verbally to other people, that's when our answers are revealed. So having that community is invaluable. So thank you for sharing that. So tell us a little bit more about what you have coming up this year, and how everybody can find and connect with you.
Sure, thank you. So the mastermind, as of right now, this particular one is only for my women that have done the deep dive work with me. So this is just their sort of continuous support. It's not an open mastermind for public. I am, however, creating some new programs. So my new exciting one that I'm going to launch probably next month. I was going to do it this month, but it's too much going on in my personal life. It's Solo to Soulmate. And it's a program for really high achiever, successful single women. And that's always been my sort of niche that developed over the years. It started out with some family members where they were just sort of, forever single, been dating many people, successful, like everything was great, good looking, like everything's fine, just couldn't break something like an invisible wall as far as relationships. Yeah. And so those people are now in happy, healthy relationships. And so they began to then send their friends and things like that. So at first, I treated it as a game years ago. I was like, well, that's a coincidence. And that's a great coincidence. And I remember at some point, my daughter, said to me, and she was always like, Mom does some weird stuff. I don't want to talk about it. I never want to, it's all like bizarre. She goes, Mom, too many coincidences. You can start owning it. And that was like a big thing for me when my kid said that, because she was never accepting that. Eventually, a lot of family members, believe it or not, too. So anyway, that became sort of my thing of helping those really long-term or chronic, I call, singles, to really break through that and their own unconscious layers of what brings them there, which is, I realized you need to first become who you've been in order to attract sort of the right person. Because if you've been attracting toxic relationships, if you've been attracting, sort of broken patterns and dynamics, then it's time to realize that it's within you. You can't just put yourself out there more. You can't keep on dating more, because you're going to keep on attracting the same thing over and over in a different person. So you have to break that cycle. You have to break whatever it is that was bringing you to that. And so that's going to be the 8-week program that I'll be launching. And I'm actually going to offer a completely free workshop on that, starting also about a month from now. I don't have the definitive date, but I'm definitely taking.
Is that the link you gave me, Helen? Is that the link that you gave me?
No,
or
the
is
link
that a different?
is actually for my generational trauma ebook, Unveiling the Mystery of Generational Trauma. So that's just my gift, truly, to anyone that wants to understand more about yourself, your lineage, and the fact that you are more than just your experiences. Understanding what generational trauma is. It's a very short ebook. I really wanted this to be out there, to express this truth for people to understand this, to become aware, right? Because I think that's the first step, is understanding that you come from a lineage. And I've brought a whole lot of examples in that book to that can hopefully help people see, oh, that's my lineage, that's what my ancestors went through, and understand that maybe this is how it's affecting me and my children today and my family dynamic, and then I bring some ways in there also how someone can start to help themselves to change and evolve out of that. So that's a completely free ebook. So for anyone that is ready to do that self-work, definitely take advantage of that. And I didn't send any other links because, as I shared with you, my website was hacked. So I'm looking to revamp that. But the ebook is definitely my gift. And for anyone that wants to connect or has any questions or wants to get on the waiting list for that program, just send me a DM on Instagram at Health and Wealth Coach, and I take down the information that way, so I can email you once everything is kind of ready to launch.
Yes. And if you're on LinkedIn watching this, send us a message, because I can get you the link directly to your DMs, and you can download that ebook. And I'm sure once you download it, you'll be on Helen's list, and she can inform you of anything else that has, that's coming up with her soon, because this is an important topic, everybody, and we can't just go through life doing the same thing over and over again and expect to feel fulfilled and expect to feel vibrant and energetic and expect for our goals to be met. We have to do the work, and it's a lot of internal work. So don't just look at the outward situations that you may have going on. Don't just look at the business stuff. You have to do the work. Everything else will fall into place once you work on yourself. So, Karen, tell everybody where they can find you and
Yes. Helen, thank you so much. Yep. Thank you for being
here. I think it's incredible that the three of us come from such different backgrounds, in our lineages. And it's really great to be able to share, from that. And I really thank you, ladies, for sharing each of your experiences and your truth, because it's incredible. I think it's so powerful for people to see and understand. And this is like a great way to, how else do you gateway by seeing someone else's experience, right? And really to understand that we are all different, but yet we're very similar. We're all kind of like on a similar path of healing ourselves, our lineages, and just living our best lives. We're all in it on a similar mission, regardless of where we come from.
That's right. Thank you. And I feel like the healing is a big taboo subject for a lot of people. So I love that we're bringing it to light and making it more normal for people so that they don't feel so alone, So yeah, thank you for your work. But yes, everybody can find me on Instagram at Karen Liano Creative. There I'll share all my social media tips and tricks. And if you're looking for some like fashion and fun things to do around New Jersey, you can follow me on my personal Instagram page, which is Paris and a Latte.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds
sexy. Hold on. I'm popping it in so that people know exactly. There you go. Paris and a latte. Yes. Oh. And you can find me everywhere: Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And if you're ready to have a conversation with me, it's calendar.marymassey.com. We can talk about all things personal growth, strategy, social media, and business. So thank you so very much for being here, for leaving comments, for asking questions. And we definitely want to know how this video impacted you, how this live impacted you, and what it is that you're going to do going forward now that you have this information, because it's not just about watching the stuff. It's about putting everything into practice and being intentional with what we do and who we watch and who we follow. And we started on Instagram when everything was shut down, when the world shut down. We were each on our phones doing this thing and having great conversations and bringing amazing people on to share as well. So make sure that you are intentional with who you follow, what you do, and that you do the work, because when you do the work, everything else will fall into place. So thank you so much, Helen, for joining us today. And we can't wait to have you again one day and to meet you in person, because we're pretty local-ish to each other.
Yeah, I would love that. Look forward to meeting you both. Thank you, ladies.
That is it for today, my friend. Thank you for being here. See you next time on Get Intentional with Mary.